Making games is a lot of fun, but if you've put any reasonable amount of time into it, you've probably learned that it can also be really hard. Once your project begins taking shape, the realization of just how much work lies ahead of you can be extremely daunting. The weight of seeing everything ahead and not knowing how to tackle it can cause developers to become overwhelmed or burned out, and in some cases, it can cause them to give up entirely. So if you're at that stage where you're feeling stuck and the path ahead isn't very obvious, what can you do? Well, the first and most important thing, in my opinion, is to break it down. In fact, you've probably heard this advice before, but I'm going to reiterate it because it's just that crucial. If you open up your project knowing there are 100 problems you need to solve, you may spend hours meandering between different scenes and scripts and objects and making very little progress. But if you open up your project with only 3 goals in mind, or maybe just 1, you're very likely to make some tangible progress. So, make a checklist. There isn't any specific blueprint you need to follow, but what's been working for me lately is thinking of 3 to 5 specific and relevant things that I can accomplish within a week or so. I'll jot those down in a notebook and open up the project with those in mind as my primary goals. And what I've found is that not only have I ended up accomplishing most of the goals I've set, but on the way I've made other improvements and tackled other issues that I wasn't even planning on. Sometimes the very act of checking off an item from your list is enough to jumpstart your motivation and creativity. Having goals in mind is important, but equally important is the motivation and inspiration required to achieve these goals. If you're immersed in the development of a game, it can be surprisingly easy to tunnel vision on making progress and meeting deadlines, and in the process, to exhaust yourself of creative resources. It's vital to take time to renew your inspiration and remind yourself why you're making a game in the first place. If you're a regular follower of this channel, you'll notice that the past few weeks have been my biggest gap without a devlog so far. And there's a good reason for that. Elden Ring, which is one of my favorite games of all time, recently got a huge expansion, and I've taken a lot of time off from developing Lost Resolve to play it. Did this feel irresponsible? A little bit. Was it bad for my channel's engagement and growth? Almost definitely. And yet, I think it was the right thing to do. I've been putting crazy amounts of hours into Lost Resolve, and making some great progress, but I also understand that creativity is a finite resource that has to be replenished. If you just keep creating and never rest, you'll find yourself exhausted and frustrated. So take some time to play, and I mean really play, the games that you love to remember why you're doing this in the first place. Does Shadow of the Erdtree have much to do with making a 2D platformer? Not really. But diving headlong into the breathtakingly beautiful realm of Shadow, sometimes for over 12 hours at a time, reinvigorated and refreshed my inspiration for game development in a way little else could. It renewed my desire to create a world that the player can escape to and get lost in, and to craft an experience that makes them feel something. Of course, it's important to play games that are similar to what you're creating, but I'd argue it's even more important to play games that you love. After all, you never know how an experience will inspire you. My last piece of advice I'll keep as simple as possible. Take a walk. If you've been sitting at your computer for 4 hours and you're starting to feel fatigued, it's probably because your body isn't designed to be idle for that long. I'm certainly guilty of spending way too long in front of the computer without taking a break, even to the point of forgetting to eat when I'm really in the zone. This type of hyperproductivity can be great, but it has its limits, and it'll take a toll on your mind and body. So once you feel that exhaustion, brain fog, or headaches start to set in, do yourself a favor and walk away. Take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, even half an hour. Go outside, walk down the block, and get some fresh air. As counterintuitive as this may seem, your subconscious mind keeps working on problems even when you're not actively thinking about them. It's happened several times so far that I've been completely stumped on how to code something and given up, only to have the solution occur to me randomly while I was doing something completely unrelated. This might seem like wizardry, but I promise it's real. So do yourself a favor and give your mind some space to decompress. You're going to do your best work if your body is rested and healthy, so take frequent breaks, eat well, and go to sleep at a reasonable hour if you can. You'll be surprised at the difference this makes. I hope this advice has been helpful. And if you're in a stage of feeling stuck, don't sweat it. Inspiration comes and goes, but as long as you stay dedicated to your vision and remain patient with yourself, I know you've got what it takes to follow it through to the end. With all that said, here's a quick update on my game, Lost Resolve. I've now got a full-fledged demo available for free on my Discord. It's basically 90% of what the official Steam demo will contain, with the missing 10% being mostly polishing, menus, and accessibility features. It's got 2 complete areas with their own cutscenes, a total of 4 action stages, and an in-game timer if you want to try to speedrun the entire demo. I'm aiming for an official Steam release of the demo in August or September, but for now, you can play this alpha version that's missing a few features. Aside from that, feel free to subscribe for future updates, add the game to your Steam wishlist if you're interested, and if you want to support the development of this project, you can leave a tip on Ko-fi. That'll be it for now. Thanks so much for the continued support, and I'll see you guys in the next video.